Good evening. We'll call the September 20th, 2012 business meeting. I ask the administrator to give the roll call.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Damon?
Here.
Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Commissioner Leininger?
Here.
And Acting Chair Savas?
Here. And Commissioner Leahan is attending another meeting tonight and will not be in attendance. So join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there any changes to the order of agenda, or a motion to approve the order of agenda?
Chair Savas, I move we approve the order of the September 20th, 2012 business meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The order of agenda is approved. Our first presentation is with Rod Cook, and he is going to take it from here, I believe. Rod.
Members of the board, thank you for allowing us to come before you this evening to declare September 24th, 2012 as Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children in Clackamas County. Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children, was launched in 2001 by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University. Family Day is a national movement that informs parents that the engagement fostered during frequent family dinners is an effective tool to help keep America's kids substance-free. Dinner does make a difference. An extensive body of research conducted over 11 years by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University has shown that frequent family dinners are an effective method in preventing youth substance abuse. Powerful outcomes have been associated with frequency of family dinners. Research shows that when compared to teens who eat dinner with family 5 or more times per week, teens who have fewer than 3 family dinners per week are almost 3 times more likely to use marijuana, more than twice as likely to drink alcohol, 4 times likelier to use tobacco products, and are more likely to be able to get alcohol, prescription drugs, and marijuana in an hour or less. We know that the most frequently abused substance among our nation's youth is alcohol. Clackamas County youth rates of alcohol and drug use mirror that of the nation. Our most recent data indicates that 17% of 8th graders and 37% of 11th graders report using alcohol at least once in the past 30 days. Physical and social consequences of alcohol abuse among our youth are serious and range from alcohol poisoning, drunk driving, risky sexual behavior, physical aggression, sexual assault, and suicide. There are also concerning rates of marijuana use among our county's youth. 7% of 8th graders and 22% of 11th graders report they have used marijuana in the past 30 days. The benefits of family dinners can begin as early as the toddler years. Toddlers learn an array of skills by eating dinner with their families. They learn that they are an important part of their families by sitting with everyone else. Toddlers who eat dinner at the table with their families have a better language development than toddlers who don't. Important social skills such as table manners, utensil use, listening skills, please and thank you, opinion sharing, discussions, helping to prepare food, helping and cleaning the kitchen, as well as invaluable focus time with their parents are all benefits of family dinners. Clackamas County Children and Youth and Families Division is actively supporting and developing evidence-based programs and initiatives that work towards preventing youth drug and alcohol use, promoting family togetherness, and beginning family dinners early. Some of the programs and initiatives underway in the county include sponsoring local Family Day events at Estacada Junior High School, Gardner Middle School in Oregon City, Alder Creek Middle School in Milwaukee, Rex Putnam High School in Milwaukee, and the event that just concluded downstairs for the families in attendance tonight. Supporting the development of community drug and alcohol prevention coalitions, including Gladstone Youth Coalition, Drug-Free Estacada Families and Youth Coalition, Oregon City Together, Sandy Community Partners, Vibrant Futures of Milwaukee, and Malala Weed and Seed. Promoting Above the Influence and youth photo voice projects using photography across Clackamas County to incorporate teens' perspectives into prevention planning. Funding PreventNet sites, a collaboration between the county, local schools, and nonprofits providing prevention programming for youth within schools based on the Extended Services School Initiative. Initiating the Positive Norms campaign, an evidence-based drug and alcohol prevention program for youth in participating Clackamas County schools. We support the prescription drug take-back events countywide. The Healthy Start, Healthy Families home visitors discuss the importance of family dinners with new parents while their children are toddlers. The Strategic Prevention Framework Initiative addresses binge drinking 18 to 25-year-olds. And last, the Clackamas County Prevention Coalition that meets monthly to develop and implement effective strategies to reduce youth drug and alcohol use. With us today, representing the Clackamas County Prevention Coalition, is Coalition Chair Jordan Turrell to read the proclamation. Jordan, can I have you come forward?
Well, thank you. Just to clarify, I'm a small business owner. I work full-time as well for Northwest Family Services, and I am not an employee. I'm a volunteer chair with this coalition that represents nearly 40 members within the community, of which all the coalitions Mr. Cook just read, it's pretty amazing. The coalition is just going into its 10th year upcoming, and it has helped start all of these coalitions locally within Clackamas County, with the goal being to reduce substance abuse throughout Clackamas County. A little bit of a commercial. We are always looking for extra hands to be involved. Upcoming later at the end of this year, December 5th, at Northwest Family Services, we're having a thank you partners event for the coalition. So folks are welcome. I remember growing up, it wasn't that long ago, living at home. While I didn't always have dinner with my parents, it was always a great time to share in fellowship and enjoy the time. And so certainly having that meal together as a family is a vital risk protective factor. And so upward and onward, the proclamation for this evening, proclaiming September 24th, 2012 as Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children in Clackamas County. Whereas 17 years of research conducted by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University have consistently found that children and teenagers who have frequent dinners together with their parents are significantly less likely to smoke, drink, and use illegal drugs. And whereas teens that eat dinner with their families fewer than 3 times a week are 4 times likelier to use tobacco, And whereas teens that eat dinner with their families fewer than 3 times a week are more than twice as likely to drink alcohol. And whereas teens that eat dinner with their families fewer than 3 times a week are almost 3 times more likely to use marijuana. And whereas teens that eat dinner with their families fewer than 3 times a week are almost 4 times more likely to say they expect to try drugs in the future. And whereas teenagers who eat dinner with their families fewer than 3 times a week are more likely to be able to get alcohol, prescription drugs, or marijuana in an hour or less. And whereas parental engagement is known to be one of the most critical factors in determining the likelihood of substance use by teenagers. And whereas toddlers benefit from family dinners by learning an array of skills such as table manners, family dynamics, social skills, language development, and an open mind to try new and healthy foods, which lays the foundation for future good health. And whereas toddlers and young children gain self-esteem, learning that they're an important part of their family, sitting at the table with everyone else, and whereas family dinners have long been considered a pillar of family life in America. Now, therefore, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim Monday, September 24th, 2012, as Family Day, a day to eat dinner with your children in Clackamas County. We encourage all citizens of the county to join in this observance and urge all families to eat dinner with your children. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Jim?
Well, thank you for your volunteerism, and thank all those organizations that have partnered to try and address the issues. And thank you for being here tonight and all the people out in the audience. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge, I see a lot of families out in the audience, and if you could just stand, if you've come specifically for this, I see children and I see parents, and thank you for forgoing your dinner this evening to come and spend time with us in this proclamation, so thank you very much. I know last year when we did this proclamation, I had talked about how in the work that we have as commissioners that it's not very often that we get to have dinner with our families during the week. And so I will be celebrating Have Dinner with Your Family Day on Sunday morning because that's when we have our big family breakfast. And so I encourage people to not underestimate the power of a family breakfast. It's just as powerful, and that's where we get caught up on our week. So thank you for this. I think it's a great reminder to take time with our families, to not let too much time go by, so that we really know what's going on in their lives. So thank you.
You know, I'm so thankful that families with young kids are here, and I know it's not easy to bring your young kids with you to a meeting like this, but it's so important because it helps drive home the fact that we in our roles as elected officials, we're the county commissioners not just for people who vote in every election, not just for people who are grown-ups, but we're also county commissioners for kids. We're the leaders whose job it is to think about how we will help the county address community needs, not just for one segment of the community, grown-ups who vote all the time, but for everybody in the community. And that means thinking about the future and trying to build a strong today and also position the county for a strong tomorrow. And I love that you're here. And it requires a lot of effort for you to be here. And I want to thank you.
I just want to kind of, when this came up last year, I kind of mentioned that I have been blessed with the opportunity, and when I grew up, to eat dinner with my family and my kids, which are now teenagers, or actually no longer, 20 and 24. So they're not teenagers anymore. My daughter just had her birthday on the 24th, or the 26th. I'll get in trouble for that. But you know, I believe that. I believe there's a lot of value in having your kids and your family together. I think it's discipline. It's a number of the things that were said here. I won't repeat them, but I think it does bring a lot of value to them, and we cherish the times that we now do get together, the breakfast, the dinners, and so forth. So it's great, and I appreciate the presentation. So with that, I'd ask for a motion.
Chair Savas, I move we proclaim September 24th, 2012 as Family Day in Clackamas County, a day to eat dinner with your children.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Damon and seconded by Commissioner Bernard. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimous. And thank you very much. And we have now declared September 24th, 2012 as Family Day in Clackamas County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
And now we'll have a presentation of, this is Clackamas County accomplishments. Gary Schmidt with Public and Government Affairs.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Public and Government Affairs began an initiative about 7 months ago called This is Clackamas County for us to share with our citizens and our residents and our customers some of the many outstanding services, initiatives, and programs accomplished by our Clackamas County Commissioners and our staff that we achieve here at the county every single day. And this is published on our county website, clackamas.us, on the Public and Government Affairs webpage, which you can see on the slide in front of you. And we have over 60 major milestone accomplishments we've identified that the county has accomplished in the last 7 months. And just as a quick means of saying there are great things that are going on here at Clackamas County, I wanted to present some of the highlights for you and for those who are watching this meeting to share with us all what is going on in Clackamas County. So very quickly, you can see on these slides, we'll go back to February 2012 when this started. And these are just some of the highlights. You can check out all 60 plus on the county webpage. Funding was approved for school-based health center in Estacada, which joins many other schools that have these health centers, which provide needed services to our youth, including Milwaukee, Oregon City, and Canby. Opening of the Sunnyside Health and Wellness Center, which expands services to almost 8,000 patients who previously had no services before that. Also in February, the county was instrumental in helping to save the government camp rest area, the only rest area between Portland and Madras, which there would have been no services for those weary travelers who just wanted an opportunity to provide those needed services on the way to that part to and from the mountain. And our county was instrumental in helping to keep that open. A new veteran service officer was added to our staff, which helped reactivate the Veteran Service Council, which provides services to our veterans to give them the services that they need here in Clackamas County. In March, we conducted our every 2-year Clackamas County Citizen Survey, which at the time, 75% of our citizens, as a reminder, were satisfied or very satisfied with the services provided by the county. Over 300 of our residents signed up for Grow Solar, which is an opportunity for residents to have solar power in their homes if they were to choose that option. As well as another legislative accomplishment in the state legislature, Clackamas County championed the Dog Agility Bill, which is another term for allowing those businesses in the county that have dog training services to, in effect, have those services on their property, because land use laws prior to that would actually not allow a business owner who provided dog training services to conduct that business on land in Clackamas County. So we were able to achieve that. In April, the Sunnyside Library in Happy Valley opened, almost 18,000 square feet, a phenomenal facility, which I know many of you were at, as well as our dog services department began offering low-cost spay and neutering clinics and services for clients, which had never been offered prior to that. Also in April, the Canby Ferry was saved thanks to action by the Board of Commissioners, a federal grant, and willingness of our citizens to pay a little bit extra for their charges to cross on that ferry, which we conducted a citizen survey, and citizens said, yes, of course, we will pay a little bit more to keep this resource open. In May, the Transportation System Plan for the county began in earnest with an advisory committee and several public work sessions. There was a major Exporting Clackamas County forum held in the county to show the great services our county provides for exporting businesses to and from businesses here in the county, as well as a Veterans Services Committee was formed, a Veterans Advisory Council, which was the first time here at the county we provided that advisory board. In May, two outdoor enthusiasts, 2 systems were opened, the Boring Station Trailhead Park, and the trolley trail was finally opened after years of preparation and organization. In June, our county board approved our operating budget for the county fiscal year, which that number there was a 6% decrease from the prior year, a reduction in the prior year's budget. Workforce Investment Council received almost $1.5 million to support job training programs for ex-offenders. And Clackamas-Multnomah County reached an agreement to expand Section 8 housing program vouchers, which was a new initiative for both counties, which increases choice and flexibility for those citizens who need that service. In July, County Commissioners, you approved new diversity goals and measures, which is, again, a new milestone here for the county that recognizes that we are inclusive of all and provide equal opportunities for all. Also, the Tri-City and Clackamas County Service District Number 1 formally closed on the purchase of the former Blue Heron property on the Westland side, which will provide some needed wastewater service treatment facility as well as natural areas and a park for our citizens to enjoy. And last month, August, Clackamas County Service District Number 1 completed their final phase of their sewer extension in the North Clackamas revitalization area. And Clackamas County Library pooled resources to strengthen and enhance the lincc.org, where you can check out books, find out information about services at the library, and now new digital resources available to our citizens, where you don't even have to go to the library. You can do it all downloaded on your internet site. So just very quickly, these are some high-level accomplishments here at Clackamas County. Again, there are many, many more available on our website if you're interested to see them. Every month, we're posting these as we achieve them here at the county. And simply wanted to say that there are positive things happening in Clackamas County thanks to our commissioners and our staff, and wanted to just quickly recognize that with you today.
Well, thank you, Gary, and I just want to acknowledge that, the combination, as you stated, the combination of the Board of County Commissioners and staff to get some of these accomplishments underway and completed is a great thing, and I'm glad that we've got an opportunity to recognize everyone for that, and I believe everyone who knows who they are and deserves the credit for that. Any comments from our other commissioners?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
That brings us to citizen communication, and I'll call you up two at a time and let you know who's next in line here. So the first up is David Gray and Rose Johnson, and then queued up after that will be Jean Freeman and Eleanor Hunter. That's David Gray. Is there a Rose Johnson here?
She's back there.
Oh,
Tom.
there she is.
To Mac.
All right, so the measure has passed, and I have a few post-mortem comments. I have to say I wasn't surprised that it passed. I have thought ever since I heard about this thing months ago that it would pass for the basic reason that the measure addresses a project that directly benefits only a small part of the county, but the voters in the entire county are going to vote for, in effect, they're going to vote for whether they like light rail or not. And if people way out in the rural parts of the county, people tend to vote for what they perceive as their own self-interest. So they vote against light rail, which means voting for the measure. So I was disappointed a bit, but not surprised. I had been wondering about what motivates the people who are so strongly against light rail. I know they say things and they write things which are supposed to explain that, but I suspect there's more to it than that. So I have these questions for people who are very strongly anti-light rail, and I see some of them here. I bet Jim Knapp is the happiest guy in town tonight and last night. I didn't attend that as an applause line for Jim Knapp. Oh, well. And that is, why are you so angry? And why the hatred? And I mean hatred, because I have heard terms like despicable, corrupt, you must resign. I don't get it. I would like someone to explain to me where the anger comes from. I'm sure they have their interest, but I don't get it. In the political scene, we have elected representatives who sometimes make decisions we don't like, and we just have to accept them and then vote different people in if our representatives are doing things contrary to what we want. Second question, why are you so vehemently opposed to the orange line? Now, please don't tell me it's the cost, because as Chair Lehan mentioned on October 22nd, there are 3 big projects underway now that are in the range of $15 to $20 million, and there's not a peep of opposition to any of those projects. So it can't just be that the orange line costs a lot of money. There are other reasons, I suspect. Third question, what's this about Portland creep? Is there really so much resentment and hatred toward the city of Portland? I don't get it. If there is, and obviously, I'm going to run a few seconds over, sorry. If you don't like Portland, just don't go to Portland. But why begrudge those of us who rather do like Portland the opportunity for another transit way to get in and out of Portland? So I would like to invite people like Jim Knapp and John Lolo, who I saw here, to talk to me, and Les Poole, who I see over here, and explain those things to me. It bothers me that we don't converse with people with the opposite views, and I would like to invite those people to have a conversation, if possible, immediately after this meeting, or at some brew pub of their choice later.
Thank you for your comments, and I appreciate you mentioning after the meeting, so. Because I'm sure a conversation in the audience would be a little bit disruptive, so thank you, David. Rose?
My name is Rose Johnson, and I live in Gladstone. And quite a few months ago, back on Valentine's Day, I started a public records request through Clackamas County. And the first thing that happened is, to my surprise, 2 days after I made my request, they sent me an email I never saw. I saw it 2 days ago. And this email from Stephen Madcore says that if I pay $40, I can have the information I've been asking for. But I've been talking to him through email since February, and he never mentioned it. Well, that's okay. I came down this morning and put up my $40 so I can get my public information request answered, hopefully by Monday, because you're not open on Friday, because I think you've had enough time. In the meantime, as a result of some of Gladstone City of's usual shenanigans, I had occasion to look up the rules on public records requests. And it turns out that in the introduction of the State Public Meetings and Records Manual, and maybe it's the other way around, the introduction written by the Attorney General says, quote, "Government transparency is vital to a healthy democracy. Public scrutiny helps ensure that government spends tax dollars wisely and works for the benefit of the people," unquote. Now, in the law contained in the manual is a paraphrase of the ORS statutes, and they printed it, and it turns out state, public, and city managers and employees use this manual because the statutes can be very, legalese. So it says, generally, ambiguities in the law should be resolved in favor of the public's right to information. Public records should generally be accessible to members of the public so that there will be an opportunity to determine whether those who have been entrusted with the affairs of government are honestly, faithfully, and competently performing their function as public servants. And I know about a case where Clackamas County citizen is trying to get some public information. And I'm just saying, this is what I see that the law says. And I called an attorney and asked him, what does it mean? He says it means that if you get to court, most of the time, 99% of the time maybe, the case will be decided in favor of the public's right to know, no matter what the disclosure, such as the governing body, no matter how much they yell about it. they're going to end up giving up the information because of the public's right to know. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, I have Eleanor Hunter and Jean Freeman, followed by Jeff Molinari and Yvonne Lazarus.
Good evening. Hi. I'm Eleanor Hunter. I live at 15010 Southeast Laurie Avenue in Oak Grove. And I'm really glad to be here tonight. And thank you, commissioners, very much for being here and providing us the opportunity to do this. I am so proud of the work that we did with Positively Clackamas, because in the last 6 months, I have seen a turnaround in behavior towards civility once again. And I believe this is a direct result of our concerned citizens who recognize what has been lost. And I'm disappointed with the results of Tuesday's election, but I'm not discouraged. I believe in the citizens of this community, and I believe that the more we become engaged, the more we will understand what's in our best interests and who is interested in our welfare. I don't believe that moneyed interests from Nevada are interested in our welfare. So I would encourage you, commissioners, to stand against the wind and know that a growing number of people understand the difficulties you face as a minority of people distort the future of this county, and they distort the dream of this special place that we call Oregon. So I'm here to thank you tonight for your resolve and your commitment to preserving this special place of Clackamas. And thank you, commissioners, so much. Thank you all, from all of us united with Positively Clackamas, for a bright future for our county. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Jean Freeman, and I live in unincorporated Westland. And here we are, another deja vu moment, French for already seen. I'm amused by our progressive friends from Positively Progress that lamented that the only reason 3-401 passed by such a high percentage was because of lower voter turnout. This group really needs to do their homework. Milwaukee Light Rail voter turnout was 38.9%. The voters prevailed by 60%. Our urban renewal district voter turnout was 38%, and the voters prevailed by 70%. The Selwood Bridge voter turnout was 41%, and the voters prevailed by 63%. Maybe the Milwaukee voter vote finally passed because it's the third time around for Milwaukee to vote against the Milwaukee Light Rail. This is the third time it's come up for the Milwaukee citizens, and I think they've had it 3 times around, and you know, they've got to have had it for voting on whether they want it or not. So it shouldn't have been any surprise to anybody that that prevailed. At the beginning of every meeting, Chair Leon always asks each of us to be respectful to each other. That would be nice if that was also shown to the speakers down here. Most of the time, a lot of the commissioners are shuffling papers, they're looking around the room, they're watching the clock to see how many minutes we have left. We're not permitted to ask questions or receive answers to our questions that we have. I don't feel that's respectful at all. If we're allowed to come up here and speak, I think it's nice to be able to get a response to what we're asking. You get what you give when you treat us like ill-informed and unknowledgeable constituents. All of us spend many hours preparing and researching topics we are going to speak about. We don't come for chatter for 6 hours about how excited we are about the Orange Line and how wonderful it will be. We come with facts and figures. We've brought solutions or other options for the light rail. In return, we get silence, no respect, not even eye contact when we are speaking. It is the opinion of many who voted this week that because of the actions taken by the 4 members to obtain a bank loan prior to the election, that they should be fired, replaced, or recalled. You took our Clackamas County taxes to the Bank of America, a bank that was bailed out by our federal taxes under TARP without our consent. Your actions of undermining Commissioner Savas by bypassing his opinion several times and making backroom deals to secure this loan with Bank of America is deplorable and shows a total lack of integrity. You are slow learners, save Commissioner Savas. Your recent actions will prove to be fatal. Your uninformed constituents will make sure of that at the ballot box. Merci.
Thank you. So next up, Jeff Molinari and Yvonne Lazarus. Did I get your name right, Jeff? Your last name? Okay.
No, you go ahead.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. They called you first.
All right. Well, good evening, guys. I'm here tonight, obviously, to talk about Measure 3401. You know, there's a lot of talk about the fact that this measure does not include the current orange line. The fact of the matter is, however, that this measure was set up to stop the orange line. Tuesday night's vote means no light rail period. This includes the orange line. Now, as county commissioners, you guys are county employees. You were hired by the voters of Clackamas County, which means you work for the voters, the taxpayers of Clackamas County. Now, there's an election in 47 days. 2 of you are running for re-election. You will either be rehired or fired in November. This represents a pink slip. Now, okay. Now, to continue with your own agenda and continue fighting the will of the people who are your employer is political suicide. Your chances of re-election are slim to none. Now, I think your chances are probably better in November, but just because 39% compared to probably 85% in November for the general election. However, John Kitzhopper won by half a point. You know, and if you look at Diane Lynn and her gang, they lost by a landslide when they ran for re-election. You guys, I'm sure, remember what happened there. Now, positively, Clackamas claims that this measure is unconstitutional. What is unconstitutional about our right to vote? Our right to vote is probably the most constitutional right that we have. Now, you also went ahead and got a loan from B of A and paid TriMet before the vote, knowing full well that the measure would pass. Now, I'm a former deputy sheriff out of Douglas County. If my memory serves me correctly, the commissioners have defrauded the taxpayers of Clackamas County, which is a criminal offense. What we have, well, I already talked about Diane Lynn, so I'll bypass that part. Now, Sheriff Craig Roberts has stated that since light rail came to Clackamas Town Center, crime is up over 80%. This includes the town center, the parking lot around the town center, the promenade, and the adjoining apartment complexes. This includes auto thefts, automobile break-ins, that sort of thing. This project also includes HUD housing along the Orange Line. McLaughlin Boulevard is going to be the new MLK Boulevard before it was cleaned up. You're inviting an increase in assaults, stabbings, shootings, prostitution, graffiti, hit and runs, and who knows what else. This is an email from the county clerk's office showing 1996 where citizens in Milwaukee said no to light rail, yet it's still coming through light rail. And I'd like to know why our vote doesn't count. In December of '97, there was a successful recall of a mayor and 2 councilors in Milwaukee. And the reason the reasons for the recall stated on the ballot included light rail. That's all I have.
You.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Lazarus, and I live in Milwaukee. My effort is to save the trolley trail, even if TriMet must redesign part of the rail line. Eminent domain or condemnation is planned. I have a question for you, and because time is short, please, I want someone to answer it. It's yes or no. That's easy. I want to know, can the trees be cut if TriMet doesn't yet own the property?
That's a question I don't have an answer to. Yeah, we'll find out later, though.
Okay, thank you. I can call you, Paul?
You can, and I will probably direct that to the administrator, the question,
Okay.
but you can call me if you like, absolutely.
I'm
Thank
writing
you.
it down.
Okay. Everything else?
Nope.
Yvonne? Okay. Thank you very much. And next up
Thank you.
is Jim Knapp and Nancy Kelly Bushley. And then followed by that will be John Ludlow and Les Poole.
Why don't you go first?
I would like to know if the county commissioners know what the rate. I'm short. Do you know how high the foreclosure rate is in Clackamas County? You have no idea, do you? Can I approach the bench and show you?
You can hand something to the clerk if you like.
Yeah. Honest, I don't have a gun. I need that back because I have some notes on the back. Everything in bright pink, and you can see where Clackamas is. That, the highest is in the bright pink. We have the highest foreclosure rate pretty much in the state of Oregon, other than down in Lake County and around those areas where there is no information. To take on the debt that you have given us is unconscionable. Okay, so, you know, you've been one step ahead, creeping around, doing your little thing. You've got your money. Pay TriMet the money, pull the damn light rail out of our neighborhood, and go away. We don't want it. But it looks like you're going to make us pay for it anyway. So all I'm asking you is get it out. We don't want it. We don't need the crime. We don't need anything that comes with it. We're perfectly happy with the way our lives are now. People are losing their home. So what are you going to do? You're going to put that money over onto my home, Jim's home, everyone else in this room. They're going to pay for it. My house is not your checkbook. My state taxes are not your checkbook for your little petty projects. We do not want the light rail. We never have. And I think we told you that Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jim Knapp. I'm Chief Petitioner of 3-401. First of all, I'd like to thank all the petition gatherers. There's about 12,000 people that participated in that in early spring. We braved the winter, the cold, the snow that was flying. We got cold, yes we did. But we had a mission. People came out of the woodwork. If you really want a synopsis, come and talk to me after. I'll give you the synopsis, what we found out. As you know, the election was 60-40. The yes won. As you know, and I'm going back in history, we talked about the Selwood Bridge, another fee on the taxpayers. Registration fee on vehicles. Urban renewal passed, 70%. I hope that you have got the message by now, but I guess you haven't. Strike three, you're out. Light rail in Clackamas County at $205 million a mile, or about $44,000 a foot. Put that in perspective, you guys. Is one of the worst transportation projects ever contrived. You have to ask yourselves, would a good businessman undertake a project of this nature? The answer is no. Only a bunch of kids in a candy store would behave like this on light rail funding. As you know, I've been here since last year, July 6th, I think I came to your meetings, because I was outraged because we didn't have the right to vote. We didn't have the right to vote on the Selwood Bridge fees, urban renewal fees, or the light rail fees. Shame on you. Debt for generations will haunt Clackamas County. There is no such thing as free food, free schools, free housing, transportation, medical, crime, fire, sheriff's office. Ask yourself the question, who pays? Who pays? I think that the commissioners have forgot who the bosses of Clackamas County. They're not you. They're the voters. I can understand now why you don't want them to vote. The voters have answered the question. They want to vote on huge projects. And everybody tried to intimidate me by saying, Jim, you want to vote on every little thing. No, I want to vote on property tax. The schools have budgets that we get to vote on. The fire district has that budget. The enhanced sheriff's district, we vote on it. Why can't we vote on the light rail? To answer the man's question earlier in his testimony, not once did the county commissioners or CPOs or Chamber of Commerce looking for jobs ask for any presentation. Nobody asked. I guarantee that we have a lot of positive information to give everyone here, but no one was listening. No one invited me in their office. Shame on you. Now, as we go forward, we have new candidates, and you betcha I'm going to be out there canvassing. And I'm going to let you figure out who I'm canvassing for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I'm really happy to see we're having an evening meeting and that the family and the folks were here earlier. It's too bad they probably had to get home or didn't realize the significance of 80,000+ people voting. And regardless of how anyone felt about yesterday's vote or the day before, the reality is that's an event that should have happened long ago. We've heard repeatedly in recent months that why all the angst now? No one was here in the past. Why now? Why did everyone wait so long? I'm an exception to that rule, as you all know. The reason for that's quite simple. When light rail was going to end at Lake Road down by Mr. Bernard's property, the line was hijacked, just like the good old days. Remember out west when they fought over where to stick the rail line and there was going to be winners and losers? No one wanted the parking and the traffic and the end of the line. There was an attempt to dump it at Kronberg Park. You've heard me say that before. And when that blew up, those that made that attempt had no place to go but on southward. Unfortunately, there was never any money to do it right. So one of the answers for Mr. Gray is that the same people that are telling him how wonderful this is are the same people that went out of their way to make sure that the negative parts of light rail ended up down the road south of Milwaukee. February 4th, 2010, Lynn Peterson, the county chair, when it was time, in a discussion item meeting, which I think was rather bizarre that the $25 million was on the agenda as a discussion item, She got up and said she had to catch a plane for a speaking engagement in Anchorage. And Lynn Peterson left. Ann ran the meeting. She recalls it well. There was no outreach. Most of the citizens had no idea what was being done. I've had several people come to me, and I can't for the life of me find anyone who attended a public hearing on extending the rail line into Oak Grove beyond Milwaukee's city limits. I'm making a public request for records of all the public meetings that occurred in 2007 and early 2008 prior to the approval of the light rail line. I'll submit it in writing. I believe the reason that people are outraged now is that not only was there a mandate, I'll wrap up quickly, not only was there a mandate to build a shorter line if the money wasn't there to reach Park Avenue, but it was ignored. And when it was ignored, and we pressed on to get to Oak Grove, we eliminated parking lots, and we came up with a plan to run the thing on top of the trolley trail, rather than spend the money to widen McLaughlin and run it up the street in an appropriate manner. So for $23 million or $25 million, whatever it may be, the county gets the end of the line and a wiped out trolley trail. And the county commissioners are the Parks District Board, and I'm very disappointed that they have not taken action to ensure that our park is not raped, and I use the word rape. I invite everyone to go to the Milwaukee website, cityofmilwaukee.org, watch the November 8th, 2011 Planning Commission hearing, and watch my testimony. Thank you.
John Ludlow, Wilsonville, candidate for Clackamas County Chair. Well, first of all, that very kind gentleman, very calm gentleman who mentioned that there's anger in this group, I think there's great disappointment, and I think they act out at the voters' box, which I think is appropriate. I never have seen any hatred in any of the people I have hung around with as part of 3-401. And the fact that it's not just the cost, why we could possibly be opposed to the Orange Line. Yeah, it's also about something fundamental that is the old Tea Party. It was called taxation without representation. Portland creep. He said, don't go to Portland. We got no problem with that. We just don't want Portland coming to us. Now, the best news of the day, and it's hard to believe, the absolute best news of the day came from the Oregonian editorial. And I quote, "It's all about you. No more trains without our approval. No more expensive, lofty decrees by the Board of Commissioners of what's right for the county and its place in the region. No more sticking it to taxpayers to service debts for years to come." The trouble is a lot of voters in mostly rural Clackamas County don't bet on that, ask Lake Oswego, like things the way they are. They do not espouse the go-go regionalism, that's what we call creep, the go-go regionalism once fostered by every civic friend of Metro, the Region Planning Agency, and still by most of you, unfortunately. And they even mentioned that the $19.9 quick $1 million financed loan last Friday, Bank of America, which they called a legal swamp. I think that's appropriate. For years, some commissioners have grumbled about Clackamas County's highly vocal minority, that's majority 3 times in a row, by the way, the no crowd, for want of a better name. Most recently, supporters of the Board of Commissioners derided the angry minority, again, I don't know where they get that, we've won 3 times in a row, as failing to represent a preponderance of forward-thinking county residents who want full regional participation and growth, transportation opportunity, and unfortunately, they didn't say it here, control by the regionalisms. People. The problem, of course, is that all the people who would laud the board for representing the wishes of most Clackamas County residents were either defeated in or absent from the Measure 3-401 vote this week. And that's something the commissioners should pay attention to right away. And finally, they say, the Board of County Commissioners has much work ahead, and it will be freed to undertake it only when it listens better to its constituents. As it's been said, the majority of you, and Charlotte's missing for that majority, and we thank Mr. Savas for certainly defending the rights of the public, but you guys are really missing, and I wonder why. That regional partnership is so strong with you that you're willing to fall on your swords for it, huh? Well, we hope a couple of you have. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
So next up, I have Dan Holliday and Mariana Moore.
They called me first, so I'll go first. Good evening. My name's Dan Holliday. I normally would apologize for my address tonight because normally I would put on a suit and a tie and come up here out of respect for the offices that you folks hold. However, over the last couple of years, you've shown that you don't deserve that respect. I would exclude Paul from that, but moving on, Jefferson has a famous quote. It says, "The tree of liberty shall be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." Now, the patriots in the crowd have given their blood, sweat, and tears over the last 2 years, gathering signatures and producing referendums and initiatives to defeat the tyrants. And I'm speaking to you folks up there. And your political blood will be spilled in November. I wish that you had listened. I wish that going forward you had begun to listen to the folks who said, these are the things that we don't want to do. But apparently your ideology is such that you refused to hear what people were saying. Now, I've served on a city commission. I've served on a school board. Mary Olson from Lake Oswego said if she had the feeling that there were a huge majority of folks in Lake Oswego that wanted the streetcar, even though she was personally opposed to it, she would have gone and supported that. But she didn't believe that was true. And obviously, there is no streetcar going to Lake Oswego. So moving forward, I got a little card in the mail today, one of those little yellow or pink things that said I had a registered mail piece. I didn't get a chance to go to the post office to pick it up, but the place where it says where it came from said Stoll. So I assume it's from Stoll Bernie, Mr. Bernard's attorney, threatening some other kind of legal action for the recall that we have going against Mr. Bernard. Well, let me answer whatever the question is right now. No matter what your attorney sent to me, the recall is going forward. We gathered 12,000 signatures for urban renewal in 8 days. I'm pretty certain that we can gather 24,000 signatures in 60 days to recall you. So there'll be an election in November, and then there's going to be an election in December or January to remove Mr. Bernard from office. Thank you very much.
Mariana Moore from Gladstone. I've been here lots of times. And in fact, last week I was here. And we asked what's going on with the financing things. There was no questions. There was no after, like you usually do with the commissioners at the end, saying little remarks. Got up important meetings, and so you all left. And the meeting ended quite abruptly, I thought. But we figured, well, you're not going to be here Friday. Nothing will happen till Monday anyway. We can find out. Come Friday morning, you've gone to California, the Bank of America, and brokered this deal. It's so obvious that you knew you were going to lose. And the only way you were going to have a chance to get that money is if you got it through before the people had a vote. It's just so disrespectful. And then the fact that you chose Bank of America. One of the other things this morning, the news of Bank of America, they're laying off 15,000 people. They're closing their banks. They're reducing their hours. And what happens to this wonderful loan when Bank of America, which will probably close, somebody else will buy them out or something else will happen. And what happens to this great loan you've got? Who ends up with it? How does that proceed? I'd like an answer to that from somebody because I think it's a real problem. And aside from that, the purpose of the people that seem to support light rail is it's going to be so good for the environment. They're going to get all these cars off the road and remove pollution. And, but they talk light rail. To me, it's heavy, heavy rail. It takes a 35-foot swath of land deep in the ground because it's so heavy. It has to have extra special base for it to run. And then this morning, they also look like they're going to come in and cut 800 trees, 800 mature trees. The trees are what keep our air clean. And the idea that you're going to cut those trees and wait 100 years for them to grow back so that they can affect the pollution that you're continuing to put onto the area. And the one last thing I want to say is I've been looking at Oatfield Road. I live close to Oatfield Road in Gladstone. And Oatfield Road is not a major street, and it curves around getting out of Milwaukee. The light rail will be stopping the cars from coming into Milwaukee from the east. One of the routes would be to come along and take Oatfield Road and come down on Park where you plan to put a light. But that is a horrible spot for traffic. It's dangerous. The whole thing needs to be put in a different place. Thank you very much.
Okay, and last up, I have Mac Woods and Tootie Smith.
You want to go first?
Ladies first, out of respect, but it's your choice.
Thank you.
It's your choice.
Hi, my name is Tootie Smith. Regarding the secret behind the back door dealing of your loan, I'm making an official public records request on record, and I do have it here in writing for the following documents. I would like the details of the loan with Bank of America for light rail, which includes, if available, the mortgage document, a promissory note, a security instrument, if any. Jamie, you're not writing this down. You always write down everything.
I'm writing it down.
Addendums, amendments, an escrow ledger outlining the closing costs, and details of all terms, including the balloon payment. I would also like to see this posted on your website so every citizen in Clackamas County can see what you encumbered them with, what kind of debt we're going to have to pay on this. Now, since the election, obviously I've been out campaigning and talking. I was talking to a businessman the other day, and you know what he told me? It was a very revealing statement. He says, Tootie, let's face it. If they're willing to do this on a Friday, behind the people's back, on a day that the county offices are closed, in a secret loan, what else are they doing that the public doesn't know about? So I'm requesting, as professional standards, that you people just quit doing backdoor deals that hurt the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
How can a sailor stand up to something so well said as that? I take my hat off to you. After 24 years in the Navy, with a clean record, Mr. Bernard continues to try to smear my reputation, belittle me, put me down. Is that respectful? I'm Mac Woods, Clackamas County. I'm a voter. I get to vote. You out in November. All of you, with except Mr. Bernard. Now, the first speaker mentioned that he would invite anybody to take a ride with him in Portland. Mr. Bernard, I invite you, bring anyone you like of the other commissioners. We'll take a little 2-minute stroll right over here to the tax accounting office that shows what you own, as you have tried to belittle me and say I don't know what I'm talking about. Very disrespectful. I'm here to challenge you, invite you to go, and I'll bring myself and say Mr. Steve Wheeler or someone else, legal counsel, to show and prove what you do own. As you've indicated, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I will be able to come next week and apologize to the whole county voters that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I have not received anything from the Governmental Ethics Commission telling me that your case has been dismissed, as you stated last week. They told me the rules are that they would let me know what has happened. I have had nothing, not one letter saying it's dismissed, but you've told the whole county it is. We'll find out. Truth or consequences? If I'm telling the truth, I invite you to step aside. If I'm lying or not honest, I will apologize to the whole county and never come to another meeting. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. You want to take me up on my invitation? Pick a day next week and we'll do it. It's free. It don't cost a penny. The records are right over there. Property tax records are free to the public and available to anyone. You should know that. Now, this is the map right here. Let's get it on camera that I had a big one built up for. This is what I reported to the Governmental Ethics Commission that you owned. As you said, you own 2 lots. Don't interrupt me, please. That's what I said to I provided the Governmental Ethics Commission with what you owned, and it's on record of what you stated to the public, for goodness sakes. You can't go back and erase that. It's on those little discs. Yes, we've heard it. It's available. Steve, you want to go with us next week? I'm inviting you. It'd be a fun trip. And I will be glad to apologize if I'm lying. I appreciate you, and all the voters out there in Clackamas County, hang in there. We got 2 new people you get to vote for or against. We love it. Have a good day.
Okay, well, that closes our public comment period. That brings us to the consent agenda. And I will ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Well, actually, I'm going to fill in for her today.
I have a cold.
Got a good cold going, so here we go with the consent agenda. Health, Housing, and Human Services. 1, approval of a construction agreement between the Community Development Division and Cedar Mill Construction Company for the Hilltop Clinic remodel project in Oregon City. Number 2, approval of an agency service contract with Clackamas Women's Services to provide case management program services for domestic violence-affected households. Number 3, approval of an agency service contract with Northwest Housing Alternatives, Inc. to provide case management program services for 70 domestic violence and/or child abuse-affected households. Under Finance Department, 1, approval of a contract with Earthworks Landscape Services, Inc. for landscape maintenance services for Clackamas County. Under Elected Officials, 1, approval of business meeting minutes. 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and the City of Portland for use of U.S. Department of Homeland Security equipment. Under Development Agency, number 1, acceptance of an easement and authorization of funding for the Glacier House Facade Improvement Project in Government Camp. Under Water Environment Services, number 1, approval of amendment number 3 to the Construction Management Services Agreement for the Capacity Management Program. Number 2, approval of a Section 00500 agreement between Clackamas County Service District Number 1, Tri-City Service District, and the West Tech Industrial, Inc. for waste gas incinerator replacement project procurement package for the waste gas flares. And that concludes the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Leininger to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. It's approved. Brings us to agenda item number 7, administrator update.
Yes. Just a few things to remark on. First of all, I would like to mention that we dedicated this afternoon Memorial Grove area on our Red Soils campus dedicated to the 34 people of employees of Clackamas County who have passed away since 2004. It's a very nice area with a very serene setting of trees, and that was a nice ceremony today. A couple other updates. In the past few meetings, Mr. Ed Ahrens has approached the board, and my deputy and I called him, and we're trying to work through his concerns about planning issues that have been expressed, and we've had some progress on that, more to come. And then last week, Mr. Don Newell approached, and on a few subjects, we're trying to work with him on the sign code issues at Colton High School. The Holt Road that is it is not being used right now, is closed. It's under continuing evaluation from DTD, our director Cam Gilmore, because of its propensity to be a slide area, and we're concerned that could happen without notice. So that's going to be reviewed again. We are requesting that we try to verify the emergency management request that they made for grant funding for the firehouse that goes back such a long time ago that we can't really verify with some of our staff. What we're trying to reassure Mr. Newell is that if they do apply for some grant funding, we'll support that, of course. So those are some of the things we're trying to work through on that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
May I ask, I know this is not, I just thought of it, could you just please address the emergency ordinance thing that we're going to be working on soon with regard to 3-401?
Oh, I have I've had verbal confirmation with Sheriff's Office, CECOM, and Emergency Management that pending that, we will have normal emergency response in all situations.
Thank you.
Right.
That brings us to Commissioner Communication. Who would like to go first?
I will go first.
I'll jump at once.
Well, I'll start with something that I think hasn't been on everybody's minds, but it's really important. And that is yesterday, after 5 years of work, a really remarkable leader in our community, Vice Principal of Milwaukee High School, Michael Rawls, together with the superintendent of North Clackamas Schools, the director of Outside In, and a lot of other wonderful community leaders, dedicated the new school-based health center that was launched at Milwaukee High School. Milwaukee High School is, I believe, a school that has a whole bunch of feeder schools where there are a high preponderance of kids who need free and reduced lunch. A school where there are a number of people who have modest means and who don't have health insurance or access to health care. And for the last 5 years, a student group and parents and a gentleman from a local church and Rotary have all come together with help from the Meyer Memorial Trust and Clackamas County and the federal government and a bunch of local business people, and they created a school-based health center. And it was launched, and people were so proud. And Mr. Rawls talked about how many kids he's encountered during his time as an educator who didn't have access to health care and therefore couldn't learn like they needed to. And now they have access, and you should go tour the facility. Their tagline is, "Real help right here." And it was really inspirational to see it. So I encourage you to see that. Transitioning to the thing that we've all been talking about tonight, light rail, and the passages that Mr. Ludlow quoted about regionalism and what Clackamas County's relationship to the region should be. I wanted to note a couple of important things. You know, reasonable people can differ on whether they want the Orange Line to come through. I didn't come to this job because I wanted to see the Orange Line built, but I came here and the Orange Line has been worked on for the last 10 years, and there's a contract to do it, and I think we needed to, and I supported reducing the project cost to the extent I felt like we could, negotiating that down to the extent we could, and adding some safety features to address community concerns about cost and about safety, and then closing, performing on that obligation. I know that there are people in this room who don't agree with that. But the thing that I want to talk about is our role in the region. Now, it's been suggested by some people that we shouldn't have a role in the region, or that Clackamas County is better separated from other parts of our region, and that it could be done. And in response to that, I want to identify a couple things. One, we need to be at a regional table, whether or not you're glad with how light rail has been resolved or not. We need to be at the regional table because by state law, a lot of decisions are made in a regional way. And a lot of transportation money for stuff that maybe you don't like, but a lot of stuff that maybe you do like is allocated through the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation and Metro, of which we have a part because we have a Clackamas County representative. And if we want to be part of that funding, we do need to come to the regional table. So it wouldn't be in our best interest, in my view, to totally step back from the regional table. Where we grow, what comes into the urban growth boundary, that is really shaped and influenced by regional decisions. And if we aren't participating in a regional table and conversations, we're not going to be able to advocate for where we want to grow or not grow. And so I don't think it's in our best interest to totally step away, however things evolve in our community. I think we need to stay connected. And one more reason is we are connected to the region. You know, Clackamas County, our people work in other parts of the region work here. Wilsonville, it exists in both Clackamas County and Washington County. Tualatin exists in both Clackamas County and Washington County. Lake Oswego, or what we refer to as Lake Oswego, my town, exists in both Clackamas County and I think parts are in Multnomah County. And you know what? Part of Portland is in Clackamas County. I mean, we are part of this region inextricably. And so we need to work together to find the best path forward that we can. And, you know, it sounds like things are evolving in our community and how we want to find that path forward. And that's fine and good. And I respect that. And, you know, I'm going to, in my remaining couple of months, really try to be respectful of the fact that some community sentiment seems to be evolving from when I was appointed to the board. But there's no not being part of this region because it's not useful to try to step away when a lot of key decisions are made there. And also, we just are. So as we find our way forward and as we build in the input of evolving community sentiment, I hope that we can all keep those two things in mind. Thanks. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin.
And I agree. We sit at the JPAC table, and one thing that is true and is obvious is that roads do not begin and end at county lines. Without sitting at the table with JPAC and hopefully an act in the future, there would be no opportunity for joint funding of any project. So we do depend on that group because frankly, ODOT has to go to a MPO or an act in order to distribute the dollars that they distribute throughout the region. We are very, very much connected. So being at the regional table is very important. I've, as mayor of Milwaukee, the most important thing I ever did, I think, was to go with our regional partners to Washington, D.C. and to Salem and secure dollars. I think the first successful opportunity was Lake Road, which is now done after all these years, 11 years later. Those monies came from regional partners agreeing to support the Lake Road project. And I don't want to get into my personal stuff, and I'd be happy to give Mac the letter if he's failed to go to the post office and look for it. I do have a copy. We have one. Steve Wheeler distributed to the commissioners earlier this week, I believe. And also, I never claimed I didn't own a series of properties. I said 2 properties will be affected by light rail. And 2 properties will be affected by a short-term easement by TriMet. I don't need to go over there. I have. The question in the ethics complaint was, did I own this secret piece of property that the Shipley family owns, along with Mary Ann something? It's a trust. And I certainly do not. And one of the properties is 2.5 inches by 50 feet, which is between the 2 buildings. So actually, I'm meeting with TriMet this week to talk about what they're going to offer for that 2-year easement. Actually, I think it's next week. The other thing is that, you know, I looked today on the web because Mac said that I owned Bernard's Garage, Inc., Bernard's Garage, LLC, and Milwaukee Downtown Development, a C corporation. He's just misinformed. Actually, I noticed somebody named Joseph Bernard owns something too, off of Macadam Avenue. I don't happen to know that Joseph Bernard, unless my father owns something I didn't know. Actually, that's a business ownership. My brother does, my sister does, and a number of family members do have own property. And there's also somebody else with a similar name, Barnard, that often I have been criticized for buying up people's property. Doesn't happen to be me, but I don't need to go over there. Anyone else who'd like to go over there, feel free. And I'd like to look into the record about the day that I actually had the map and pointed out to everybody the properties I own. I never hid the fact. And the Ethics Commission also got all that information. And I don't know that that's public, and it's frankly none of your business. So Mac has that information, so ask Mac. Oh, thanks tonight, by the way. Everyone was pretty courteous. I mean, it was actually a very reasonable meeting tonight, and I appreciate that.
Commissioner Damon.
So last Thursday, I did leave the commission meeting abruptly because I was invited by the governor to participate in a meeting in Salem with commissioners from O&C counties around the state. And these are the Oregon and California trust land counties that have a predominant amount of timberland in their county that we've seen dramatically reduced harvests on. These are counties: Jefferson County, Douglas County, Curry County, Josephine County, Benton County. I mean, I can go on. Many of these counties are seeing unemployment, double-digit unemployment rate, upwards to 20% in Josephine County. They're looking for a solution forward. They're looking for a revenue source. These are folks who have entire school districts that are on free and reduced lunch programs. These are folks that can't afford to pay more taxes. And so the governor convened a meeting of all of us, and he invited me. And he invited me because we have O&C lands here in Clackamas County. In Clackamas County, 55% of the county is actually managed by the federal government. And if you add in the private timberland, about 70%, 70, of our county is timberland. And even some of our forested, more rural counties didn't realize that. So this is a source of revenue for Clackamas County, and I was at the table advocating for that. And what struck me was when I listened to people talk about the tax base and how little money they had, is after the meeting, one of the commissioners asked me about light rail. And this was a commissioner from Tillamook County. And they asked me about light rail, and they said that they were curious how things were going. And this was last week before the vote, and we were talking about it. And he said, he thought light rail was a good thing, for the urban areas. And then he said, I sure wish our county could get some infrastructure money like that. And it really made me think. It made me take a step back and think, here our federal delegation has gone to bat for us over the last 10 plus years, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, to try to bring this money home to Oregon. And they've been working on it in incremental decisions over the last 10, 12 years, including decisions that this Board of County Commissioners made. And I have to just wonder what has changed. I mean, it's just a question to put out there. And I really appreciate what Les said, because Les has been there. I mean, Les has been there as a good, strong advocate for his community. But I just have to wonder, what has changed over the last few years? I see Mariana mouthing a lot. And I know part of what's changed is we're in a terrible recession. And when we're in a recession and assessed values are down and revenues are down, we want to take a step back and look at our priorities. What are our priorities? Can we afford this? Is this something that we can do? And I have to say that for the decisions made about light rail, I mean, these decisions have been made in the past, and I don't say that as a cop-out. I mean, I wasn't here when those decisions were made, and again, I don't say that as a cop-out. I take my role seriously in advancing the decisions that were made, because these kinds of infrastructure projects take decades, are decades in the making. But I do have to wonder what's changed. And a year ago, on September 5th, 2011, there was an editorial in the Oregonian. This was an editorial board editorial, and I really encourage you to look this up. And it was celebrating the Blue Line, the 25th anniversary of the Blue Line opening. And it was, you know, just to be a little bit glib, I mean, it was a love fest editorial about the light rail, about how we take it for granted, about how we rely on it, about what a good thing it is. And one of the sentences that just really stood out to me in this editorial 1 year ago, it said, the reason why we have the system that we have today is because of stick your neck out leadership, those who are willing to stay on track and make these hard decisions. And I have to ask, what has changed from last year to this year? Why is it that the editorial we see in the Oregonian today is just delighting in the fact that commissioners who have been making decisions, you know, and carrying forward decisions that have made before us, they're just delighting in the fact that we stuck our neck out to try to make good on these commitments that we've had, that we've tried to get us the best deal possible. There are no backdoor deals. Everything that we've done, we've known we've had this deadline. I'm sorry if you disagree. You know, everything that we've done in the last year, we've done in the full eye of the public. We're working off of an extension. From last year. Everybody knew when the deadline was. We talked about that, you know, people asked, why don't you talk about how are you going to fund this light rail? And we said, we need to wait for the full funding grant agreement to come through. The transportation bill was held up, and back in DC, it hadn't been reauthorized. And we should wait to see if it gets reauthorized. Let's wait and see if we even get the funding. Let's wait and see what our share really is. And that came through in May. And just as quick as we could in June, at a study session, we started talking about how are we going to make good on this commitment? What are our options? What are we going to do? And we all decided that what made sense to do was to try to pay less, was to try to get really clear about what we were buying. And that's what we did over this summer. And that's what we did. And so I really just have to ask the question, what has changed from last year to this year? And like Mr. Gray, who asked, you know, I would be really interested to hear people's thoughts on that. And I welcome your emails and phone calls because I am very genuinely interested to know what has changed in this 1 year.
Thank you for your comments. Just want to, first thing before I make my comments, I'd just like to mention that the Commissioner Roundtable will be October.
It will be October, let's just look at, I think, the 3rd.
October 3rd. So
The
October
first
3rd,
Wednesday.
which is the first Wednesday of every month, we have our Commissioner Roundtable between 5:30 and 6:30-ish. Sometimes we run a little bit over, where you can come and talk, ask questions, and we'll just try and have a dialogue. So I encourage everyone who does want to have that kind of a dialogue and some Q&A, that's your best opportunity. So my comments, I mean, you know, this is a tough job. And I don't say that lightly. It's a very tough job. And I agree with the comments along the line that we do need, the way the funding structure is for transportation projects, we do need to be at the table. And though we might disagree on what we ought to be lobbying for or fighting for, and, you know, and maybe that's, you know, that's obviously different, you know, to probably each of us personally and the breadth of whatever that transportation is, whether it's bikeways, or it's sidewalks, or it's trolley trails or trails, light rail, not light rail, transportation projects, all those types of things. What's important to you? Is it maintenance, potholes, things like that? But I will say that I don't think I'm going to necessarily be ashamed or to try and represent that Clackamas County is different, and Washington County is different, and Multnomah County is different. And I respect who they are and what they think and what their population, the majority of those people want and have, as I do Washington County. But we're unique, and I'm perfectly okay with that. We just need to find out who we are, what we want, and how we want to grow, so we can meet our own aspirations within our own means. And I think that's That's the, to me, that's the fundamental thing. And hopefully we can better connect, and I do appreciate everyone's courtesy tonight. I know that some of the comments were tough, but I do appreciate everyone's courtesy tonight. Thank you and good night.